So how do we implement this into image segmentation? Now this is not that, like I said before, they didn't actually provide me a sample image, but this is just an image I put in there so you could maybe get an idea. So each particle contains 7 cluster centroids. Since we know there's 7 different segments, or 7 different classifications we need to identify, each particle contains 7 cluster centroids, which it moves about this search space. Each centroid has a position value for each one of the 10 attributes, as I said before. So it's in a 10-dimensional space. So a centroid might be placed around where the green values are really high and intense. So all this grass and the tree here would all get assigned to that cluster centroid. And then it might put another cluster centroid where the red values are really intense and there's a lot of red, excess red, and that's where all these bricks would get assigned to. So that's how you kind of implement the PSOQI and use the particles to segment this image. You make cluster centroids that these points in the image would get assigned to. So results. Now, it's kind of interesting because although I don't have the actual image, I can actually tell a lot about what the image looks like based on these results. So first of all, you have the brick, which is 83% successful. The PSOQI was 83% successful as identifying the brick as the brick. It mislabeled 5 of the bricks as cement. So you imagine that's probably where the mortar was, and so this was a lot of gray and it looked like cement. Now the sky was 100% successful. Every single sky point in the image it labeled as sky, and no other points in the entire image were labeled as sky. So it was 100% successful. Now the foliage was only 70% successful. Now what I can tell you about the foliage is that this picture was probably taken sometime in fall because the foliage probably is not green. As you can see here, the grass at the bottom had a 100% success rate, so every grass part was identified as grass. If this foliage, if these like bush leaves and tree leaves were green, then they probably would have gotten a little mixed up with the grass. But instead, it got mixed up. 8 identified as cement and 1 identified with the path. So there was probably a lot of leaves missing from the tree, and you could see through the trees and see the path through the trees. Hence why the foliage kind of mixed with the cement, and sometimes it got mislabeled as cement. Now, the cement portions was only 67% successful. 10 identified were the path. So this path probably looked much similar in color to the cement. They were probably grayish looking. Now the window was only 16% successful. 15 were identified as the foliage, 9 were identified as cement, and 1 was identified as the brick. Now this baffled me for a while, but then I realized that the window, instead of being able to see through it, it probably was reflecting whatever was outside. So that's why it misidentifies as foliage, cement, and brick, because it's just a reflection of whatever is going on outside. Now the path was 87% successful, and like I said before, it misidentified some as the cement, as you can see, and then the grass was 100% successful. So even though I don't have the actual image, I can tell you it's probably a brick building in the fall with leaves with some leaves had fallen off on the ground, and a lot of grass, and a path that you can see through the trees. So that's pretty interesting to be able to tell just from these results that what a general idea of the image looks like, even though you don't even actually have the image. So conclusions are that the PSOQI was technically successful in segmenting the image based on the information that was given. Unfortunately, it didn't exactly segment the image exactly how in reality it should have been segmented, but that's because it was only given color information. So the path, which probably was grayish colored that looked like cement, it just kind of misplaced those in each centroid because they're both very gray, and it'd be very hard to distinguish which one belongs to which. So in conclusion, image segmentation is probably is actually a very difficult process. You can't just base it on color information